Welcome to Two Blondes and a Printer. I am Caitlin Shanks with my lovely co-host Anna Hockett, and today we don't have a guest. So this is truly the happy hour. So Anna, what's on our dance card today?
We are so excited that you guys joined us for a little drink ski and some chatty. We are talking today about something that we don't just believe in, but we know a lot about. We have heard so much buzz in the industry lately about how to buy software. And everyone from, huge conferences we were just at in Las Vegas, which is Printing United in early September, to even smaller, more intimate gatherings that we've been at, people get really, really overwhelmed by the investment in software. And since Caitlin and I, now we've been very clear that we haven't been in the print industry forever, but we both have been in the software industry for quite some time. We've sold software, and we also want to give some tips and tricks on how to buy it, not be overwhelmed by it, and almost be
Mhm.
excited by it because it's something that's really going to help. So, Kate, what else are we going to talk about besides how great it is to get to have a drink with our coworker and chat about something that
Yeah,
we really know a lot about?
yeah, we're definitely passionate. And I know you said we're aiming this at the print and mail industry. Of course, wouldn't be Two Blondes and a Printer if we didn't. But really, this does apply to everyone because we're about to give you just a practical guide to the questions to ask and the red flags to watch out for on your journey to find your next software provider or solution.
I even brought my red flag. So if you see this go up, that means that we both know exactly what we're doing. I may be relating some of this to dating or real life examples. And so will Caitlin. So
Oh,
hopefully you find it useful.
yeah, let's start with our list. This is our top 15, you guys. So, Anna, kick it
Top
off.
top 15 things to look for or keep in mind when you're buying software. Like I said, some of this I might relate a little bit to dating, and this is one of them. So if you're on a date and during the date every single answer is yes to every question that you ask, very similar in the software sales process. If your vendor or one of your prospective vendors is answering yes to every question you have, that's a bit of a red flag. We're going to go ahead and wave that red flag, because if they're answering yes to everything, it's a bad sign that they're just telling you what you want to hear just to get you to sign on that dotted line, make that investment. But chances are they're not going to be able to do everything. I can think of multiple scenarios where, again, as a software rep or a salesperson, I've wanted to say yes, but I have to go back to my team to make sure it's even possible. And that is a good sign, I would say, is if someone says, you know what, I think we can do that, but I need to go back to the people that build this stuff and make sure that this is something that we can do before I give you a for sure answer and try to get money out of you. I think that that's really something to keep in mind. So that's going to be my
Yeah,
I don't want to say number one, but the first tip I'm going to share from my side of the business here.
yeah, I love it. So, another tip that I have is that ask your vendor or prospective vendor to let you know about the talent who's going to be assigned to your team. I mean, if we're, at a restaurant, you're not just a Michelin star restaurant and they're just picking, chefs right off the street, there's a good chance that they're not going to be up to the standard to get you across the finish line successfully, especially for an enterprise level software solution. And so don't be afraid to ask in the sales process, okay, who's going to be assigned to my team? What does that implementation look like? What are their skill sets? Because that's something you need to know. You don't want the most junior people or who don't have tenure or experience trying to get you off the ground with potentially a really, really big investment with high stakes.
Absolutely. Kaylin, do you think that most companies that are worth investing in, they'll be open to that kind of conversation? I could see how that might feel a little not intrusive, but like,
You might feel uncomfortable asking the question for sure. It can get a little
right?
bit awkward, but if the vendor's worth their salt, then they're going to be very pro visibility and they're going to be proud of their team if it's, up to snuff, and they'll want you to meet the team and really feel comfortable before signing on the dotted line.
Absolutely. The other thing about that is I think anybody on that team could also tell you, or the rep that you're dealing with could also be very honest with you and say, here's the deal. This is where this person's strengths are. This is where my strengths are. And then
Mhm.
this is where this other, so that you really have like an expectation of what you're dealing with. And I think that that's always pretty important also. Kind of in that thought, but this is another question that's super important. Obviously, you're going to ask about cost. Cost is extremely important, as is value. I think value is a little bit more important than cost. We're going to get into a part 2 of this specific podcast talking specifically about value and ROI, because that's such a loaded topic.
Big
But
topic.
huge. But specific to cost that I'm talking about is just making sure that you really understand the cost structure, the cost increases, like the whether it's per license, whether it's based on volume, whether it's based on clicks, whether it's
Mhm.
based on just a flat yearly rate. Maybe it's time and materials as far as like implementation and things like that are concerned. But
Yeah.
there's also, concerns around, or just things to think about, are the price increases every year. Does it go with the market, or is it a flat increase every year? Is there room to renegotiate every year? What types of things does that look like? Because then again, it's managing expectations. It's not having surprises, especially once you're down the road with your partner that you
Yeah.
picked. I don't know,
Yeah.
Kate, like you know a lot about like different like ways of proposing price. What are your thoughts on that specifically?
I've worked at companies and I've seen horror stories where they offer you these great introductory rates. I mean, my God, we've all seen it in the housing market back in the early 2000s. Here, we're going to get you on this amazing interest rate, and in a few years, it's going to, jack up. And I think that can also relate to software really easily. One example that comes to mind is just with infrastructure. You might pay a really low introductory rate, get set up with a few virtual machines, but then as you scale, all of a sudden, now that line item in your budget is absolutely massive, and you may not have planned for that strategically. So I would say always ask your vendor when you're going through that initial review process and say, okay, I understand this might be what the contract says right now, but how does that scale as my business grows? If it scales at all. And then you're able to plan out, okay, this is what it's now, maybe 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. Have them go through scenarios. If they're worth their salt as a salesperson and as an organization, they will help you understand that.
Kaylin, that's such a good point, because again, if your rep or if your vendor is listening to you and your goal is to grow, and they're telling you that their price is going to go up significantly the more that they grow, that is
Mhm.
something to think about. I mean, that's typically that's very typical, I would say, as
Yeah.
far as some of the costs of software. However, you want to make sure that the more you grow, the more the price continues to make sense,
Right.
especially if that's one of your goals and that's why you're investing in the software in the first place. So
Yeah.
that's a really good point though, is like finding a vendor to understand what those goals are and then align whatever their pricing looks like with those to make sure that it makes sense for you. Because imagine if you're growing and you're all happy about it, but yet your price isn't really, it's growing too much. I think that that's something that really,
Like, if you think about it this way, the cost to value ratio in the present moment needs to still have a very, realistic cost to value ratio in the future as you do scale. So just keep that in mind. And if they hem and haw around that and they don't want to run scenarios for you, or it's very vague about what that future cost model will look like, then throw up the red flag.
throw up the red flag. This is another one I just thought of in a former, this is years and years ago. This is one of my first sales jobs. And we literally locked people into this low price. I won't tell you who it was with. I didn't work for them very long because I couldn't stomach it.
Yeah.
We'd lock people in at a really low price. And then in 6 months or whatever it was, I think 6 to 9 months, the price would always go up substantially, but then they were locked into a contract, which again, I didn't stay with this company for long, but it was really good experience for me to learn, just for my own being a consumer. Like this can happen if you're not very clear on the payment terms as well as the potential price increases. And then the other thing that I kind of layered in there that's not even on our list here, Caitlin, is really like making sure that your vendor understands your goals.
Mhm.
Because if your goal is to grow and they're pitching these prices that are going to go up substantially as your volume goes up, that shows that they're not listening to you. And that shows that like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think that would be another one that maybe is pretty basic, but like making sure your vendor understands your goals is a really big thing.
Yeah, I think that definitely underscores probably all of these points now that you talk about it.
Mhm.
So, another one to ask is how many implementations is this current vendor in the middle of? Like, say, if you were to sign on the dotted line, you're rearing to go, you're excited to get the project started. And then all of a sudden, you realize, hold on, are these resources being shared? All of a sudden, people really aren't answering my emails, and it seems really difficult to get a hold of the project team, or maybe they just feel a little bit distracted and they have resources shuffling around, which can happen. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's worthwhile for people who are going through this review process to ask up front, hey, are we going to be sharing resources? Do I get dedicated resources? What are the expectations going into it?
And then on top of that, like what are the expectations for like when the implementation might start? Some companies have the great products. I mean, listen, this is another one that I worked for. They have such great products, but because the products are so awesome or so cutting edge or so new, they're not able to schedule the implementations. You might sign on the dotted line on in December and you might not even start implementation until the following November. That's kind of like anticlimactic. And if you want the most cutting edge piece of software, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, I thought we were going to get going on this really quick. So I think asking, and honestly, I'll say it again, like in dating, I think it's also very important to lay out the expectations up front. But like, this
Amen.
this is a partnership, right? Like very similar to dating. You want to make sure that whoever you're picking to spend your time with or use as a technology partner specific to software is you're aligning with your expectations for the entire relationship.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the other thing I was going to talk about the implementation thing was I thought of who it was, Katelin. It was one of my friends is a wedding planner, and she said, I said, are all these people getting married on Fridays and Sundays because it's cheaper? And she said, that's part of it, but a lot of times it has to do with they don't want to be getting married while someone else is getting married in the other ballroom at XYZ hotel or, whatever the venue is. And honestly, that's exactly why I don't know that I'd want to go through an implementation if all these people were working on all the same exact or something similar but like very different where it could get mixed up.
Right. You want to be a priority, and the right vendor is going to make you that priority and understand the value of a partnership. So just don't be afraid to ask those types of questions. It might feel awkward in the moment, and it might feel like you're prying into their behind the scenes information about how they structure the company and yada, 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 do resource management. But hey, if you don't ask, you're never going to know. And then you can only blame yourself when you're halfway down an implementation and you feel like you're not getting the attention you deserve. So,
And to your
hey,
point from before, if they don't know how to answer these questions, that
red
that
flag.
might be a bit of a red flag too. And you guys, like, can we just talk about me leaning into the fall season here with my flannel for just a
Well,
second?
in honor of football season starting this fall 2024, we got to have our red flags, flag on the field, penalty,
I,
whatever sports terminology is.
maybe we should have wore jerseys
I know. All right. Well,
next
best laid
time.
plans next
Next
time.
one, next one, next one.
All right. So, what else is on the docket?
Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit about something that is a little more near and dear to your heart, which is like
Oh, God.
scripting versus built.
Oh my goodness. Get out my soapbox because
That
I'm about to climb high up on that. All right. So you're going through a software demo and maybe you're talking to the sales reps, maybe a solution architect, and they're showing you these amazing demos and they are painting the rosiest of pictures. And all of a sudden you're getting ideas and you see how this could really impact your business in such a great way. You are on board. Well, I would just advise that you ask, okay, you know my expectations, you know what my requirements are as a business. I've seen the demo. What parts of this involve maybe custom scripting versus the built-in functionality? You want to understand if you're asking for all of these things and maybe they require custom components. Hold on, why? That is a red flag that says maybe, yeah, they could do it, they could build it, and it could be custom. Okay, and that might be the way you want to go, but that also might be indicative that they're trying to force your solution into something that the product or the software wasn't really meant to do. So I would just say it's not a complete red flag. It's not a complete, hey, we're never going to call this vendor again, but proceed with caution. And like to add on to that, if you're in that scenario, ask them, okay, you've listened to my business goals, you've listened to my objectives, and I might have laid out my requirements, and you're telling me, oh, that's custom this, custom that. They should be able to tell you, wait, what if we did it a slightly different way so that it fits into how our product works and still achieves your end goals without having all of this custom stuff? They should be the ones advising you on that. They're the experts on their product.
Absolutely. And I would say too, to take that just a tiny step further, because I've seen so many enterprise level software companies nowadays are putting their pricing on the website, which is lovely. But when you go through the demo and it has to be so much custom stuff and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so in bed with this vendor because it's just the best deal. This is going to be so easy for us because it was so easy for someone else. But like then they start showing you all this great stuff. That's wonderful. But you have to make sure that, again, you're managing your expectations as, but if we want it this custom to our business, it's going to be significantly higher in price than what your website said the base package is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that probably means a longer implementation timeline, which you should be aware of and able to plan for. And then this is, I think, where I see companies fall into a trap. Because if they agree to all the custom work and they're on board and they're willing to assume the higher cost and the longer timeline, ask them about what the long-term upkeep and maintenance looks like on all of those custom scripts and custom software. Because let me tell you, that is a pitfall. All of a sudden, you could be down the road and maybe you need to go through a version upgrade. All of a sudden, those custom scripts, that custom development rears its ugly head because that all has to migrate over too. So there are just some things to think about down the road when it comes to custom work. And you should be upfront and ask your vendor, how are we going to navigate this in a few years when we want to, pivot or do something different or have to upgrade?
That's so, so important, Kate. When we're talking about software, we're talking about cutting edge technology, understanding what is going to be on you, what is going to be on them. And if it is going to be on them, is this how they're making their money? Is it just a money-making system of we're gonna do all this customs and then continue to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade? You just want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that in mind, in the print and customer communication space specifically, and a lot of other industries, but something that we're your two blondes and a printer are very familiar with, is the merger and acquisition play, or the merger and acquisition space, whether it's talking to your vendors or it's your own company. Understanding one, what it looks like if your company merges in or acquires another company to continue to grow the software, to continue to scale it up, or understanding, is your software vendor, is it owned by private equity? Is it owned by venture capital? Is it a private owner? Is it publicly traded? Like, what is going on in the economic landscape of your vendor is also very, very important. I mean, I'll give you two scenarios. I've seen a company that I know very well that went through tons and tons and tons of acquisitions. Yay, great for the company because it continued to grow. What did that mean for customer service? What did that mean for resources? What did that mean for what the experience was for the end user, the customers? The second scenario I'll give you is if it's a technology company that might be, everybody can look at LinkedIn and see what has happened to a lot of these technology companies in the last 3 years with layoffs and all of these different movers and shakers in this area. So being aware of how successful and how, like, what the long-term goals are of your vendor is becoming more and more important every single day when you're looking at and investing in some of these different products.
Yeah. Just to bring it to one example, Say I've got a potential software vendor and it's privately held, maybe a little bit smaller, and you've had a relationship with them. You've got great customer experience or customer service. You have one-on-one relationships with the people who have built your software and implemented your software solution and continue to maintain it. You know the owner by name. It's a great story. It's a great partnership. And then private equity comes in or what have you, and this company gets bought and sold, and all of a sudden you no longer are getting that type of service. You no longer understand what the process looks like to get support. And if you just ask those questions up front, granted, software company might not tell you their plans, but it's worth asking. Because I know even at Rackame, when people ask us, all right, so kind of tell us about the financial landscape, we're always very clear that we want to maintain and continue to be privately held because we do get to hold on to that control and, maintain that level of service. So,
And this is a Rackame sponsored podcast. I didn't say that in the intro, so I just have to give Rackame a quick plug as far as being a Rackame sponsored podcast. But in addition to it being a Rackame sponsored podcast, I actually love getting that question working for Rackame because I'm very confident in saying, hey, listen, this is how what our goals look like, and this is what we're looking to do in the industry versus I couldn't probably say that with some other organizations that I've worked with.
yeah.
And the attention.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the attention to detail sometimes, or just like the autonomy and the honesty when it comes to that is, I think that's really important when you're choosing a vendor, especially a software technology partner.
Mm-hmm. And then one more thing to note about this is that it's worthwhile to ask kind of where is the origin story of this software? You never know as companies get bought and get sold and different pieces of technology and different solutions sort of change hands. You might be talking with a sales rep and really excited about a potential solution, but then you peel back the layers and you realize that this software came from an acquisition 5-10 years ago, and the brain trust, the people who built it are gone, the people who really knew the product are gone, and it's kind of just clinging on to dear life. That will impact your success in the long term. So ask about that. Who's still at the company that made the software in the first place? Know where the brain is.
Right. But like the other thing too, Caitlin, is like some of these, at least that I've seen, and I literally saw two at Print United. And I'm not saying they're bad companies. I think their products kind of kick ass. However, they weren't purpose built for the print industry. They were purpose built for a different industry, which again, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but it's just something, and I don't even think it's a red flag. It's just something to be aware of as you're going into the purchasing process, right?
Mhm.
Like if it was meant for the auto industry or the manufacturing industry, yes, some print is manufacturing. However, you really need to make sure that you understand where it aligns if that is important to you as a company.
Yeah, go in eyes wide open. And, my thing is that the worst they can tell you is, oh, we don't have that information, or, oh, we can't really disclose that at that time. Great, fine. But at least you're asking the questions and gathering as much data as you can so that you can make the best choice for your business.
And the goal at the end of all this, at least, and I think you'd agree with me, Kate, like the goal is you want to be excited. These are investments, right? In the future, either in saving money or making money or whatever you're going to use to solve with the software. And it's really, it's exciting if you're excited about the purchase and confident versus really, really reluctant. And then you just like dating, you want to start the relationship off on a good foot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes into our next point too. And I stand by this, I live and die by this. Please, if you are evaluating software vendors, ask them if they are putting R&D capital into the platform. Now, I just bought a home, well, just is a little bit much, but 5 years ago. And so, we're cruising along, we're having a great time. Nothing's gone too wrong yet. But at the end of the day, you have to continue to put maintenance into your house before things start falling apart. And it is the same with software, especially when we're looking at tech and we're looking at the latest and greatest, especially in industries these days that are constantly changing and evolving. you need to know that your software vendor is prioritizing R&D and making that investment to keep it up to date, to keep it usable, and to build in the latest and greatest technology as well. And so if they hem and haw and be like, oh, well, R&D, I don't really have a clear answer on that, then absolutely huge red flag. Really think about that. And because if they're not putting any money into it, maybe it's a dying product. Maybe they're just letting it ride out. You don't want to be the newest customer on software that's about to be sunset. Let me tell you.
100%. The other thing too that I just thought of is like, if they can't give you some sort of timeline, or like, let's say, to use software speak, let's say you're really, really interested in any new SaaS products that are coming out, or maybe you're on an on-prem solution right now, but you want to move to a SaaS or like a cloud-based product. And they're like, yeah, we're going cloud-based. Don't worry about it. If they can't tell you when, or at least like what their roadmap looks like, that is a red flag because
oh my God, yes. Okay. I worked at a company I worked for. We won't name names, but we constantly would say, "Oh yeah, that's on our roadmap. That's on our roadmap." Oh my God. And we were told you have to say this, you have to say this. And I think it was all lies. I think maybe there was good intentions to put it on a roadmap, but I never saw that roadmap. And I'm on the sales team. I'm internally part of this company and I don't even know what the roadmap is. So if they cannot be, specific, and I'm not saying that you need to know on November 2nd of 2025, we're going cloud, but they should at least be able to tell you what that roadmap is like, is what the priorities are. And if they do releases, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, what is that cadence? How often are they putting out new features?
I think that's huge. I mean, that's a big one because
It
again,
is.
like understanding, having the expectation and knowing what you're getting yourself into is, I think that's one of the reasons this is so intimidating. Another thing to think about now, this is, I think we're starting to not round out our list. We have a few more to go here, but this is something that's so near and dear to my heart because I'm going to talk a little bit more like about support. Like, what is the support team or customer care, not even customer care, but more like customer success? Like, how are they setting you up for success on this platform? I worked at a company. I was living in Chicago at the time. Not that anybody cares, but I just set the stage here. So I'm living in Chicago. I'm working at a smaller company. They invested in one of the largest, probably the best CRM platforms on the market. Rhymes with Schmel's Doors, and we were sold a great bill of goods. Like it was like, this is going to help transform your business from customer communication to making sure that internally we're able to communicate and track the deals and all these different things. And then it came about that, well, in order to make it really relevant to our business and get us set up, we would have to invest like more than double in the customer support or in the consultations that came with it. I don't know if that's how it works for everybody. This was a very small business. However, it's a great sales model because they get deals done left and right. But for the business, we didn't know. My CEO at the time she was so excited that she was bringing us this product for us internally to use as a sales team. And it was completely underwhelming once we actually had it because we had to spend so much more money in order to be successful using it. So just make sure that you understand how the vendor is setting you up for success with their specific product. Is there some sort of training? Is there customer support? Is there customer success? Like what is different about that? And I think that that's, again, to have those expectations, but also it's very okay to ask those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple other maybe buzzwords to keep in mind that vendors might throw out there. Are there user groups? Do they do their own conferences where they bring all of their customers together to, share ideas, share stories, share the latest and greatest and how to get the most out of a platform? And is there documentation? Are there how-to videos? What are the resources that will be at your disposal? Because you need to know that. I mean, going in, you need to be eyes wide open on, all right, once we have this software and it's in place and the implementation's done, it's like bringing a baby home from the hospital. It's like, great, they helped you, they like have the baby, and now you're sent home and you're like, oh no, what do I do with this? It's the same with software. software vendors will help you get through the delivery. And then sometimes you can really be on your own, and that can be so daunting and overwhelming and costly if you then have to go through all of these additional trainings and consultations like Anna you were talking about. So know that up front.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And typically, I mean, I feel like that's something that, again, not to continue to plug Rackame, but like that's something that I think is a huge bonus. And I think that that's something to listen for in some of the presentations and demos. I know, Caitlin, you're going to talk about demos in just a second, but like it's something to listen for. If they're touting their customer success or telling you, hey, we're not gonna just give you a login and leave you to the wolves. We're gonna make sure that we're setting you up for success here. At least that's something that makes me feel pretty good when I would buy, if I'm gonna buy something that I know is gonna solve an issue for me. So I think that's something also to listen for in some of the demos and the pitches that you might be evaluating.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I just think about how we structure our client relationships, and I'm not saying we're perfect by any means, but I set up a reoccurring meeting cadence to just talk with our clients and make sure that they're still seeing value and asking her like what's changed in your business, because maybe our software can do something to meet that changed need, or maybe we need to kind of rework the software so that it's aligned with your business objectives. Because if your business objectives are the same as when you bought the software to maybe 5 years down the road, I'd be shocked. So you need a software partner who is willing to meet with you regularly to understand those changes and to continue to make sure that that software you purchased and that investment you made continues to be valuable in the long term.
That's
So
such a good point.
tell you like, hey, you're going to have a client success manager and they're meeting with you on a regular cadence. If they don't know those types of answers, or maybe that doesn't even exist at the company, medium yellow flag.
Yellow flag for sure.
I guess we needed more colors of flags, Anna. We should have known.
We'll get them for the next one. It's not a big deal.
My gosh, right? So that kind of leads into, let's talk about demos. Demos are great. I've hit on this before. They're so
They
bright.
can be. They can be great.
They can be great. True. I've seen a bad demo in my time, but typically they're going to have all the bells and whistles. Everything, every feature, every tool is going to be set up, and it's going to paint this really great picture of what's possible, which is what a demo should do. It should tell you what's possible. But all too often I see these demos that don't necessarily align with reality. We call that the smoke and mirrors vaporware effect in software. And so you need to ask in no uncertain terms, what is available today? Like, show me what is available, tried, true, and tested today versus what's kind of vaporware or just on their roadmap. And maybe they've got great intentions, but right out of the gate, that's not going to be available to me. So know the difference, because again, going in eyes wide open is the best way to go. Similarly, just kind of one other thought on demos, implementations, because they're going to show you something, a demo site, a demo software that is fully configured, it's already set up. But what does the implementation process look like to get me there? Is it a week, a month, a year, 3 years? You need to know. And don't let them sell you into this idea that might be easy or fast if it's not. And so just kick the tires.
Absolutely. I think that you just, when you're making an investment and it's important to your business, it could potentially, no, I don't want to say make or break, but it could be a big impact to your business. Don't feel like asking these questions is going to like ruin the relationship or like make you look stupid. It's going to make you look really smart, and it's going to make someone who, it's going to make, if they're worth their salt, and they're going to have some answers, and they might not even have the answers, but then at least they can get you the answers. So again, you're excited for this purchase. You're excited to start using a solution that's going to be impactful for your business.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more on that. And the demo thing, I mean, I've probably done some bad demos, like.
Oh, I'm sure we all have. You don't grow up in sales and have a perfect track record on demos. It's just
For sure. And I've definitely bombed before. And it's like, all right, but listening to, okay, maybe what went wrong in that demo. Was it a technology error? Because we all can have that. Or was it truly like they're telling you this isn't available now? This is available on our demo site. We can't give it to you. Those are the things to really listen for. And just, understanding, making sure, again, that they understand you as they're talking to you in the demo instead of them just telling you what they have. Because then that's not really a demo. That's just a speech. Like, good for you. You can,
You know what? And that make that having a light bulb moment. I forgot to add this to our list here. So you might go in and you have, an initial demo where they're just kind of showing you what they got and you're getting acquainted with the software. And then as you tell them about your business and your needs and your goals, I would say push for them to put together a tailored demo specifically around what you need. Because if they can't do that, that means one of two things. Either there was a lot of vaporware, or more likely, they're just not listening. And if they're not listening now, you best believe they're not going to listen later when you've signed the contract and, jobs, reputations, investments are all on the line. I would call that one a red flag. I definitely ask for personalized demos.
Or at least like talking about the use cases. Like, I don't think we can all do all these proofs of concept for every single client, but like if they're not talking to your specific use cases and telling you, I mean, we've talked about this. Like, I would love to tell everyone that I talk to the newest, greatest, latest things that we do. But like, I'm not going to tell someone about our proofing tool when they're like, I really only need to know how to batch a bunch of products so I can save a bunch of time and money on my floor. Like, I'm not going to go through our proofing tool with them. Maybe at some point I will, but if they're not listening, I think that's like a huge red flag moment to them not listening, right?
Absolutely. And maybe you give them a pass. Maybe that sales gal or man was having a bad day and something was off. Blame it on an internet connection. I don't care. But if they're getting the technical people involved, if they're on your first, second, third demo, by that point, they really should have learned your business by now. And if they can't do that, then I would say run away. Run away. Someone else is out there who can provide a similar, if not better, solution and put the time in to learn your business.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the next point kind of leads into that because it has to do with leadership tenure. And this is tough for me because so I read this on a list as far as leadership tenure. Katelin and I talked about it, and I do believe that leadership tenure is important. However, even as like little as 6 months ago, I've met two CEOs that have been at their respective businesses for the only like 2 years or maybe even a year and a half. And these people are dynamic, incredible, like brilliant human beings. So I hate to just say tenure, but I think that understanding backgrounds of leadership is really important because it's not like, I mean, Kayla, I think you could probably think of the CEO that I'm talking about. Like, she's been in her role for not that long, but her background is so incredible that it's like she could do anything and she's gonna kick some ass. So it's not just tenure at that company, but looking at the backgrounds of who is running and who are like the thought leaders in the organization, I think is really important to think about because then where the ideas, typically salespeople aren't just going off on their own, figuring this out. They're getting ideas and we're getting inspired by our leadership team, just like others are probably by theirs. So you want to make sure that the people that this stuff is trickling down from, that you also have some sort of, like something not in common. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing is the willingness for leadership to get involved in calls. I think that that's something that we didn't even put down, but like
we didn't.
Executive sponsorship in some of these deals or some of these conversations to me would be really big if I was buying and investing in software. So I think that that's another big one is like, are they willing? I don't want to say every CEO needs to be on every single call and demo, but are they willing to jump on, introduce themselves and say like, I'm standing behind this product because I built the damn thing? Or am I willing to stand behind my sales rep because they don't know everything and I have been at this company for a long time? I think that that's something to think about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think one other thing to add on to that when we're talking about leadership, when you're buying commodities, it's a little bit different. But when you're buying these complex software solutions like the ones that we're talking about, then there's a huge part of that that just goes back to culture. And culture starts at the top. And so you want to make sure that you're aligned with a vendor who has, a culture that you believe in, that aligns with your business's values and has the potential to, again, forge that long-term strategic partnership into the future. And I think it's pretty easy to tell pretty quickly if cultures don't align. And like you said, Anna, getting them on the phone, getting to kind of hear about their vision, see their vision, ask, see if they'll come on a call, see if you can talk to them. The worst they can say is no. And I just don't think that is a question anyone should steer away from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because they want your business. So if they're not
Right.
willing to take a little bit of time to get on a call with you to learn about yours, who could be a potential partner of theirs, I'd wave a red flag for that one. I would. Again, I'm
Right.
not saying that a CEO of a publicly traded huge company needs to be on every demo or call. All right. Like, I'm not saying that.
The CEO of Dell on the phone if you're buying a little bit of infrastructure, but talk to the higher ups, talk to managers, see how high you can get up in the organization, because the more people you talk to at, different levels of executive function are just going to be really great indicators of the overall culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that thought too, talk to the other people, your peers in the industry. I mean, I know you guys, some
Mm.
of you are going to be competitors with one another, but even so, like we've seen such great collaboration go on in competitive scenarios, because just because a vendor's working with someone else doesn't mean they're certainly not going to not work with you. It's not like you have to recreate everything. Like at some point, I mean, I don't even know what to relate it to, but at some point, it's okay to use the same vendors. You're probably going to be using them a little bit differently. But if someone's really doing well with a specific vendor, there's no shame in being like, God, you know what? We're probably going to start using them too, because they're really helping you guys. So, we're parts of groups like IPW, IPMA, ING, multiple other ones where there's a lot of collaboration going on. So
Yeah,
don't be afraid to reach out to your peers, especially the ones that are having a lot of success. And if they don't share who they're using, so be it. But they might want to tell you some of the pitfalls and some of the good things that have been going on.
absolutely. I think, especially in print and mail, I'm not sure about other industries, but I can at least speak to this one. The level of collaboration and just openness between competitors is absolutely wild. And I think it's because the industry is changing so fast and that there's now this huge technology component that there wasn't really, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that everyone is kind of coming together collectively to say, okay, how are we going to pivot this industry and continue to be successful and adapt to market changes and challenges? And, we're stronger together than we are apart, and creating that community and joining that community and, being vulnerable. It will really, it'll help you and it will pay dividends.
Absolutely. Plus, like, who doesn't like to feel like they're a part of something, like a part of a community, a part maybe it's just because I work from my little home office every day and I'm alone, but like, who doesn't like to feel like, again, for collaboration purposes, for even friendship purposes, for learning purposes, there's a lot of good things that can come of that. So if you're interested in other things like groups that we've seen, please let us know, because we're more than happy to help share some of the insight that we've seen.
Yeah. And final thought, relating it back to software vendors, ask your software vendors or your prospective vendors what groups they're a part of. I mean, like Anna said, we're a part of this one, IPMA, IPW, ING. We rattled off 3 right there. And I'm sure other vendors could do the same. You want to see what circles they're a part of, because those are probably circles you might get value out of joining as well.
Absolutely. And then the other thing too is asking your trusted vendors about the ones that you're looking at. Like
Yes.
we have conversations like that all the time. I have one like tomorrow about different systems, because we've been in the industry for quite some time, and one of our prospect or one of our clients came to us and said, "Hey, can we just talk to you for a few minutes about like we're trying
Right.
to figure this out here?" And it's like, and we said, "Absolutely. We'd love to help. We're not going to tell you what to do, but we'd love to help you on this journey because we understand that it can be tough."
You know what? I love that. And I would just put this kind of cautionary word of advice. If you are going to a software vendor and are asking for, advice or looking at other, software vendors in the industry who might be competitors of theirs, if they start, just bashing their competitors left and right, red, yellow, if not red flag,
It's a
because
red flag.
typically that means they are so focused on just making them seem like the latest and greatest and shiniest thing in the store that they're probably not being fully truthful. Anna, I know like you and I will get on the phone with prospective clients, and they'll ask us, and I think we're very open and honest, and that's just our sales style, is to be truly authentic because we care about the end customer getting exactly what they need to be successful. And if it's not us, it's not us, but they're always going to look at us as that vendor who is honest and can be
Mhm.
trustworthy. And that's not everybody. So just be careful and keep your ears open if, everything out of their mouth is, well, they don't do this very well and they're, bad partner managers, what have you, because a little bit too much negativity might be a red flag that something's off.
Absolutely. It's similar to saying yes to everything. It's like
Yes.
if
Ooh.
it's too much of one thing, and again, you want to be talking to a vendor that's proud and excited and enthusiastic about their product and their solution that they can offer you. But if they're
Mhm.
just dogging these other solutions out there, I don't know. It's just it would definitely be something to think about, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Um, what I'm sorry, are you? I think you're up, Kate. If you there's one, I think
Oh,
there's one
yeah.
more.
So, okay, my next one is just understanding how to balance value along with priority and ease of internal adoption. So typically, you're going to a software vendor, you're doing an evaluation, and you might have these very lofty goals that are going to take quite a while to implement. This might be completely changing your technology strategy as an organization. And instead of just biting off, the whole big chunk, see where you can break it down and find, low hanging fruit where you can kind of test that relationship with your new vendor and try and drive value quickly. Like, let's try and get some of these easy, low hanging fruit projects done so that we can show value, that we can show success internally within your own organization. I think that does wonders when proving out the value of this kind of strategic roadmap to your executives. And then I also think it just gives everyone on your internal team that confidence that you're working with a vendor who is going to get you across the finish line and, start driving internal adoption.
Absolutely. And I think that the vendor should understand if you're trying to get a quick win that would like the low-hanging fruit example, like if you can get a quick win, why wouldn't you want to prove yourself like, hey, yeah, we can do this really well. Like they might say something to you like, please give us the opportunity to show you what else we have. But yeah, we can do this tomorrow for you and we'll get it done. So I think when they give you those options too, it's a really good sign. Um,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to say like, can we just do this part of it quick or like now and then we'll keep talking about this. I think that's really important. That's something that I think we should touch on definitely, Caitlin, in the ROI conversation as well.
Yeah.
Is
And
like where can you get the biggest return with the smallest amount of time or the shortest lift?
because that really is what builds momentum. And if you're, a true software partner with your customers, you're going to look at the overall roadmap because they might come to you with all these ideas and you're like, yes, we can do all of this for you. And you're so excited. But really sit down and break it down and create a roadmap where you can accomplish projects and start to build that momentum, because that's going to help drive internal adoption at the end of the day. It's going to help everyone get excited, and it's going to help you prove out that value and that ROI quicker, sooner rather than later.
Plus, it's going to make you look awesome to the rest of your team
Yeah, that's
because you're the one that had the idea, right? Like that's I think a big like fear in buying software is like if you push for this product or this solution
yeah.
and it doesn't work out, your ass is on the line, so to say. Like it. So again, if you can get those quick wins, that's just going to prove your case like quickly and or like effectively, sooner rather than later.
And you know
We're
what?
getting ready to wrap up. Or go ahead, Caitlin. What?
Sorry, I just have one more quick
No.
anecdote. So I was just actually talking to a customer, and they had signed up with a vendor and who had kind of promised them the world, took on this massive, massive project. And all of a sudden, it's 5 years into this project and it is still not done. And they've made a huge capital expenditure and time commitment. So many resources have been spent on this for really not a lot to be shown at the end of the day. And now they're evaluating other software vendors because they're like, oh my gosh, what have we done? We kind of need to cut it loose. So just things to keep in mind. If they're promising you the world in one gigantic project, I've just seen a lot of horror stories with that. Break it up into pieces.
I agree. I do agree. Or be very clear. And again, that's where it's like the expectation thing. Be very clear on what it does look like and what good looks like, because you don't want to be 5 years down the road after you spent God knows how much money and you really don't have anything to show for it. And you're not solving for your problem. You're not solving for the challenge that you were engaging with them with for the first place.
Absolutely. So kind of, I feel like our last final note to wrap up on, just as we close this out, because I know you and I could talk about this forever, is that at the end of the day, your vendor should be your Sherpa guiding you up the mountain path. And if they're not, something's wrong. Huge red flag. Like this should be a trusted partnership. Yes, wave the red flag. And they should be your expert, your knowledge guide, your survival guide, your confidant, someone to lean on, maybe your therapist here or there, whatever you need to get this project over the line.
Your bartender, apparently.
Your bartender, no, all the things. And so your vendor just does not have to fit into one small box is I think our message here.
And then one other thing, the only last thing I would say is, and it goes right in line with what you're saying, is really look at it like a partnership or a relationship. Like, you want to work with people you like, you want to work with people you trust, you want to work with people that do listen and understand you, I think.
Who bring new ideas to the table, and the list goes on. But really look for that partnership and you'll find it. And I think if you just keep your ears open and you ask questions, you will be able to suss out who's in it for the partnership and who's not.
Absolutely. Katelin, you're in it for the partnership, and that's one of the things I adore about you.
Well, back at ya. I mean, this is why we can talk about this ad nauseum. And I mean, we have other tips and tricks. I don't even think we got to the full end of our list, but we're going to wrap up and we're going to do a part 2 on just how to buy software and the ROI and value realization. And hey, we might even do another one to round out these final tips and tricks and things to ask your vendors.
Absolutely. So if you are sick of hearing just Katelin and I talk, now we do have you guys, this is not because we don't have a great list of guests that are going to be attending very, very soon in some upcoming episodes, but we just, like I said, we heard the challenge out in the industry. We wanted to address it. But if you do have ideas and you would like to talk to us and have a drink with us on our podcast, please email
2blondesanaprinter@gmail.com. And until next time, you guys, stay warm, stay cozy, and cheers to football season. Bye, everybody.